We are meeting as a safety committee. First off, are there any citizen concerns? Hearing, seeing none, would you two agree that there are no objections to the minutes of July the 26th? No objections.
No objection.
Next on the agenda is Mike Hickerson with the Perrysburg Firefighter Group.
Good evening. I got some stuff for you here. You're welcome. So I think we're at a unique opportunity here. We've never before had, except for Haraz, anybody in council that seemed to me that took a good interest in our safety division, I guess, the fire department. And I know that, Councilperson Van Hoosen, I know that you went out and did Feel the Heat out at Owens, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And Councilperson Weber, you were involved in stakeholding for stuff for the second station. Is that correct?
Yes.
And Councilperson Materney, I read in your bio that you were a EMTA out in Sandusky.
Out of town.
Out where?
Brooklyn.
Brooklyn. Okay. I mean, so you guys have a pretty decent background, and I find that people who do, this kind of work, they're looking for, well, I guess I should say, you get a lot of satisfaction out of making a difference in people's lives. So, people talk about, what's it like to be a firefighter, what's it like to be a paramedic, they see all that stuff on TV. Well, it's not really like what you see on TV. Sometimes all I'm doing is holding some little lady's hand on the way into the hospital. But, I know that when I go home at the end of the day that I've made a difference in her life and I've made a difference in her family's life. I have lived in Perrysburg for a long time. I came on in 2002. And when I came on in 2002 is because I got married to my wife and she wanted to live in Perrysburg. She was raised here in Perrysburg. I have raised my family in Perrysburg. Both my kids are Perrysburg graduates. I got a daughter going to BG and a son going to UT right now. When I moved here in 2002 and we built our house, Perrysburg was a very small community. I guess not a small community, but it was before Lovis Commons. Lovis Commons was an empty guard shack in the BGSU Polk Depository. The high school had just been built. Hull Prairie Intermediate School wasn't even thought of, and all of those neighborhoods out there in that western end of town was something that was still on the drawing board. We had Cambridge out there behind HBI, we have Hawthorne out for Roachton, we have Sanctuary Meadows, Brookhaven, all that stuff wasn't out there. Summerfield, all that stuff was just farm field stuff. So we've seen a lot of changes as we've gone through Perrysburg over the years, and we've seen a lot of growth. Now, back when I hired on in 2002, Deputy Chief Johnson pulled me into his office and he said, "This is what the city's going to do. We're going to build a second fire station." He showed me the plot land out there on Roachton Road. That's where the street division is now. But he said, "This is where we're building the second fire station." And for a long time, we looked at that stuff and said, why is it on that side or why is it on that side 25? If we respond to an emergency, we have to go through those lights and stuff. Why is it there? And it kind of bounced around, never really actually materialized. Chief Ruiz came in, seemed to bring everything into a line. Good person to do all that stuff. He brought in the stakeholders. He brought the community together and he said, this is what we need to do. We already had all that information before. We knew we needed a second fire station, but he was the one who was able to put it down on paper and give you guys numbers to say, this is what we need. This is why we need it. This is where we need it at. And places that we had picked before that we thought that we needed that fire station, is within a quarter mile of where it is now. We always thought it was going to be over there in Levis somewhere, or, you know, that'd be like across from the high school or something along that line. But it ends up just being around the corner where the old township station was at. If you look at this history that I gave you, what I've done here is everybody who was on shift when I hired in here is listed there, and in red I put people who have left. And the green, the highlighted green part is people who are still there. So we have had lots of people over the years, and I got some dates in there, and you can see when we added these fire inspector, you can see who retired, you can see who left for private industry. We had a lot of people leave, we had a lot of people hired. But the big thing that I want you to get from this is which one of those people were replacements and which one of them were new hires. You can see as we go through the years, as people are hired, and then this is stuff for you guys to reflect on after this meeting is over. You can reference back to it right now. And I'm just trying to give you an idea of how we've hired over through the years. So when I hired on in 2002, we were running a 4 and 5 man crew. And we had 3 people who came in from standby. When the first call goes out for an ambulance or a fire truck, the ambulance or the fire truck would respond. Usually it was 2 and 2 or 3 and 2, 3 on the engine or 2 on the engine and 2 on the ambulance. And we would respond to that emergency.
Can you say that again? Repeat that again.
I said our first response when I hired on in 2002
Yes.
was we either had 4 or 5 on shift, and we would run 3 on the engine or 2 on the engine, and then we'd run 2 on the medic. So we respond with an effective force of 4 or 5 people. And then when those people went out for that call, we had what we called a standby list. This means that 3 people from home would come in and cover that next call. So if there's another call that came in right away after that first one went out, we had 3 more people coming in to cover it. And if 2 people transported to the hospital or 3 people transported to the hospital, we would have the staffing there at that station to cover those people. I gotta ask you, if I have 4 people on station and they respond to an emergency, and then when they respond, those people who are on standby being paid $1 an hour to stay in the city and wait for that emergency to happen, they come in and sit on staffing. How many people do I have? Where's my staffing level?
If I did the math right, it'd be 3.
If I had 4 people that were responding to an emergency, and then 3 people come in from home when that emergency happened, I would say that my effective force would be 7.
1, 3, yes.
So that was in 2002. What is our minimum staffing today? We are 20 years later. I just had my anniversary, 20 years with Perrysburg, 25 years total in the fire service. March 14th of this year, I got 25 years in. June 10th, I had 20 years with Perrysburg. So all this time later, 20 years later, what is our minimum staffing now? Anybody want to guess?
7.
It says 7. Now, people are going to say, well,
What's the average staffing versus minimum?
average staffing? Well, it depends on who you ask. So we do have some standards. We have NIST standards and stuff that I'm going to include in here. And that's why I gave you on those conclusions. I gave you a summary on both EMS and fire side. If I look at the International Association of City Managers, they are going to say that the average staffing for any city over 10,000 is 1.52 per thousand. How many people do we have in Perrysburg? What is our population?
25 plus.
25 plus? When I looked, I had some different answers depending on which source that you went to, and I wanted to make sure that was totally transparent with all this information, so that you guys would have full faith in me. So if I'm looking at 25,000 people, if I am at 1.52, that means that they're at 38. Do I think that we need 38 people on the fire department? Probably not. I think that's probably a little bit of overkill, but I don't think that where we're at now is an appropriate level of staff.
Do you have recommendations, Mike?
I have missed studies. My recommendation that I would like to see is I'd like to see us hire 6 right away. Now, everybody's going to go, wow, 6 people, that's a lot. But what that would do is that would give us two people more on the shift, and it would bring our shifts to 11 people per shift. I've worked with Bridget here. We have been talking since I've been union president about stuff. And I think that we're at a good point right now where we could probably, negotiate something out to where, the city gets something that they want. They proposed last contract to put EMTs on, not just all firefighter paramedics. Everybody that's full-time right now is a firefighter paramedic. I think that the time is right to look at that again and see what we can do. There are a lot of other departments around here who run with EMTs and paramedics with. And not every call is an ALS call, and I think there's some room for some compromise there. So that would be my recommendation. 6 people right now, even if they were all EMTs. Now we got people on our part-time list right now. We got 5 people. They were all great. Back in 2019, we initiated a part-time plan to where the union agreed, hey, we're gonna give up 2 spots a day to allow the city to bring in 2 part-time people for every 24-hour shift. That would be 1 in each station that was supposed to help us with staff. As it worked out, they cover about 20% of our calls, or about 20% of our staffing level. If I look at a 30-day period and I have 60 slots in that 30-day period, they average over the last year, they have averaged about 28. So that's not too bad. And we have run through, I don't know, probably 25, 30 part-time people since this plan was implemented. But you gotta understand that the way that our business works is a lot of these guys, we work for a part-time entity. I work for Waterville, I work for Ottawa Hills, I worked for Bowling Green when I first got into the service. I worked in Toledo Hospital's emergency room, I worked private ambulance. This is our path for this group. We get in here, we do some part-time stuff to get our foot in the door. We keep taking tests, keep gaining experience until somebody hires us and says, hey, we'd like to offer you a full-time job at this department. Some people we have lost. If you look through this history, Oregon was just hiring. We lost Kyle Schilke to Oregon. Great paramedic, great firefighter, loved work with the guy. Super good guy. Other people that have been through our part-time list that we have hired, we've hired like 6 people out there. They are all good, and we have really avoided some slugs, I tell you. I teach at Owens. I've been out there for the last 15 years. I teach fire and EMS out there. Some of the people that have come through on our part-time list were excellent students, and I thought, wow, these guys are going to make great employees. But they got on our department, and where's your motivation? Now that you got your stuff done and you're on the department, oh, I want to go to Toledo. Okay? So we bring these guys on, we give them some experience, we train them, we put money into them, and then they go somewhere else. So we have probably, I don't know, 23 different people since 2019 or 2017 or whenever it was that we started this program that have moved through, and that's just the way things go. Like I said, people want to get on a full-time department and they work different part-time jobs until something opens up for them, they just get more experience.
So we have 5 part-timers right now?
We have 5 part-time people on our roster right now, and I would take all 5 of them. They're all
qualified to be full-time?
Well, 2 of them are Fire 2 EMTs. They have not passed their medic yet, maybe even 3. I'd have to look at that list again. But I would rather work with a really good EMT than a lousy paramedic. And we've had some lousy paramedics come through that part-time program, and I am glad that we were able to see the way that they work and what their morals were and what their work motivation was and how they handled things, because that's not somebody I want to work with. I'm glad that they moved on somewhere else. You can see from our run volume here, from when I came out, I think I had 1,478 calls that year on my first year here. Up to right now, well, not right now, but I guess last year, we are almost at 3,000 calls. We had a little bit of a drop during the COVID year. COVID was really weird. When it first came out, people were going to the hospital and stuff, and then all of a sudden they came out and said, don't go to the hospital unless you're really, really sick because you'll end up catching COVID from the hospital. So we were going a couple days in a row without even turning a wheel. It was like a ghost town. But our call volume dropped out, and we were not an anomaly in that situation. Everybody did that. Toledo, Springfield, everybody did that. They all kind of dropped the call volume, and we went from getting really super busy until, wow, when's your next call going to come in? I haven't heard one. It's really weird. So you can see that our call volume has greatly increased. I'm going to ask you to click on the next slide there.
Absolutely.
Can I take a picture of that?
Sure.
I already emailed
This name emailed to me? Oh, okay.
And I didn't
I
know.
knew you were going to ask. It's already in your email.
All right, thank you.
I did not know how savvy you guys were about PDF files and all that stuff. So I brought that stuff in on paper, but I will be happy to supply you with anything that I have on staffing that you can look at independently.
More information then.
Yes, sir. Yeah. And then there's a ton of it out there. I had to sit through it to try to bring this down to a manageable level to where you guys would not go like, when is this guy going to be done? He's been standing up here talking for a long time.
No, you think of Joe Fraley. He gave us a lot of stats, a lot of information that night, and it took me a long time to soak that in. Yeah.
Well, we've been working with administration over different things, and we've tried different types of staffing plans. As you can see, the majority of our calls are EMS. The majority of our calls are for people who are like 25 to 67. We got a lot of elderly calls, and the more you age, I'm 56, the more that we see people having medical problems. And they're not just simple medical problems, they're more advanced medical problems. So I would say that we run more ALS than we do BLS. We get a small percentage of fires. This is a 3-year average here when it talks about incident count. I pulled this right from Joe's accreditation report that he has shown people before. We got a little bit of technical rescue in there, things like we had a building collapse, we have ice rescues, we have water rescues. And speaking of water rescues, if we have 3 people on that boat, you know how hard it is to get a group of people out of the water? The last water rescue that I went on was 4 people who decided to go over to the island. It was in the fall, and it was cold, and the water was high, and it was raining fast. And a lot of these islands were sieves, like a calendar that you use to string your noodles on your spaghetti. And we got the call for the rescue, and we went out there, and it was just about dark. They were dressed in hoodies and jeans. They had been drinking. 2 guys and 2 girls going over to the island. And they were out there hanging to trees, trying not to capsize in the water.
You probably didn't have any life jackets on.
They did not have any life jackets. They were so lucky that they didn't die. So these are the things that we run across. If I have more than 1 person in the water, I need more than 1 rescuer being able to jump in that water and grab hold of that person. We need at least 4 on that boat if we're going to release on that boat. And that's something that I have brought up for a long time, and it has been swept to the wayside. We have 3 people over in the station right now. Or wait, we got 4 people over there? Yeah, we got 4 people over there right now, but most of the time it's 3. When water rescue comes in, all 4 of them guys are going to jump in the boat and go down the water. They should be out there in the water doing that rescue. But if we have 3 people, we have 1 person operating the boat, 1 person spotting from the inside of the boat, 1 person jumping in the water. If we got multiple victims in the water, like the 4 that I had, it's got to take some time to get them out of there. We run some risk. I don't see a reason for it. We're not a poor community. I don't see a reason for it. What side of the 25 do you live on? East or west?
I'm on the east side.
Okay.
On the side.
You're on the west side?
Yes.
Councilperson Turner?
East.
East side? Well, I'd like to let you know that you people on the east side of 25 are not getting the same service as the people on the west side of 25. Station 39 is staffed with a minimum of 4 people. Station 38, which is downtown on this side of 25, is staffed with a minimum of 3 people. So I would imagine that you guys are probably paying around the same amount of taxes. Why are you getting different service?
I have a question. When you talk about minimum, is that
Yes.
the average staffing?
We're talking about minimum people that have to be there before they call on people on
That's
overtime
right
and
there.
staff.
And it's not the same as average, it's average and minimum.
If I look through the average, I did not take that information down, but when I was going back through the last year of the roster, looking at what it was, 7 or 8, because we have 12-hour shifts, 12-hour slots in there, there's a lot of information there. But I'd say the majority of them were 7.
I just curious.
Deputy Chief, do you know where our staffing was at? Usually
I'm just
average?
curious, because there's things that affect your staffing level outside of the control.
Yeah.
Like duties, that type of thing, training.
Is there a specific question you might be able to
I'm
ask?
just curious.
But
I did.
all that information is available. I can look that information up and include it in the summary to you guys if that's what you'd like. I would just like to get it moving forward. I would like for you guys to take a look at it and decide, are we on the right path? So the whole thing about 3 people on one side of 25 and 4 people on the other side of 25, whether it's a fire or an arrest, that's a big deal to me. I think that the citizens would think that was a big deal also. Now, we have tried some different staffing models since we have opened up the second station, and we have tried doing different things to make that four-person staffing model, 3-person staffing model work. Can you put more of this? First thing that we did was we tried 3 people on the medic and 1 person in a chase car from Station 39. So these 3 people would be the officer in charge, the medic driver, and the person we call patient care, who does mostly all the report writing and makes all those decisions back here and back in of that ambulance. So 3 people would go out on the ambulance. The officer would usually ride back. This came with problems that were unexpected. Things like, when I pull up to a car accident, how do I do my windshield assessment of the scene and call over the radio? If I'm working with a couple of new guys who are very new to Perrysburg, maybe it's a part-timer and somebody who's brand new, and I'm in the back of the box back there, and they go the wrong way, how do I tell them, hey, you guys going the wrong way? They didn't say this street, they said this other street. That's a problem. We found those problems out after we started doing this. The other thing that it does is it delays time-sensitive care. If I got an arrest or a fire coming in, there is time-critical tasks that need to be done. I have 1 person now who has left Station 38 that is usually or Station 39 is that engine driver, who comes over in that car to be that 4th person on that call. Going across town code 3 in that car was dangerous. People did not see us. And it was scary, so we stopped doing it. The other thing is when that person got over there in that car, and it was not a critical patient, it was somebody who just needed a little bit of care and a transport to the ER. That person in the car would pick up the officer, take him back to the station. Now we have 1 person going back to the station in a car, and we have 1 officer sitting at the station by himself at Station 38. If the next call comes in, what is he going to do? Is he going to go out there and fight that fire? Is he going to wait for the engine to show up? Time critical tasks. If he gets that arrest, what is he going to do? Is he going to get out there and work that arrest by himself? All time critical tasks. The next staffing model that we tried, click again please, was the officer in charge, the medic driver, patient care response to the medic driver. On the medic, and this is the same thing. But we stopped going code 3 because it was dangerous going across town like that. So now we have a longer time unless we call for them and say, hey, can you pick up to code 3 and hurry up and get here. We still had a delay in response. When I went out and worked an arrest just recently here within the last week, as a difficulty breather, it came as a difficulty breather. When we arrived at the door with 3, they said, this is a working arrest, CPR is in progress. I got on the radio, I said, hey, Station 39, I need 2 people over here immediately. We went in there and did what we could until they got there. If you have an arrest, we have to drag in a lot of equipment. This material, I don't know how long you worked in EMS and stuff, but I would think that you would have a handle on this if you responded to people who are hypoglycemic or MIs, strokes, people with hip fractures. These are all the kinds of calls that I'm seeing that are a problem when you don't have enough people on staff. You don't have enough people on scene to take care of that stuff. Hypoglycemia is life-threatening. MIs are life-threatening. Strokes are life-threatening. Even a hip fracture, if I have to package up that hip fracture and move them, I need to get vital signs. I need to give that person probably something for pain because they are going to absolutely go through the ceiling when we start to move them. And then I'm going to have to move them around here. Now we use vacuum mattresses. We use what we call a mega mover. We have great tools. Perrysburg supplies us with great equipment. But all the equipment in the world doesn't matter if we don't have enough people to actually get that person out the door. And these things don't happen like what you would see on television. When people go down, they're not out in the middle of the street. They're not out in the middle of a room someplace. Where do we find most of our arrests? In the bathroom.
Like you say, in the bathroom, to the toilet, the bathtub is where we get them in and out.
I don't know what you guys got.
Backboard.
Yeah, backboard, or that mega mover, or whatever.
They're not in the best condition.
But we need to be able to get them out there somewhere into some area where I need people around them to work on them. We need to have somebody doing CPR on them, and it needs to be continuously because interrupted CPR means loss of coronary perfusion. We need to have somebody to handle that airway. I need to have somebody putting fast patches on them. We need to put the monitor on them and see what's going on with them. We need to be able to start an IV on them. We need to be able to break out drugs and we need to give them things like advanced cardiac life support drugs to be able to try to spur the heart to restart and to get them to vasoconstrict enough so that when we're doing CPR, that we're actually pushing blood up to those vital organs.
That's really amazing to watch. You don't get into this one.
Well, we got a way around that now. So when we have an arrest, we don't even try for an IV anymore. We do an IO. And an IO is called an interosseous needle. It's like a little Black & Decker drill. And my favorite spot is about right here, 2 fingers below your tibial tuberosity. Anything that I can put in an IV, I can put in that IO. So that's why I done that last arrest. So I had one person come in and start doing CPR. I grabbed a Lucas. We got a Lucas device that does CPR for us. It is a wonderful machine. We are blessed to have it because it will do CPR tirelessly at the same depth and the same rate, and that is what we are hoping for. We need to be able to perfuse that myocardium of the heart in order to get it ready for that shock, in order to bring it back into a perfusing rhythm. So it's not like what you see on TV when somebody goes down and they show it on TV and then it goes, beep, we got a flat line across there. That is not what it is in real life. In real life it is because that heart is just either firing so fast or it is firing all over the place and just wiggling around like a big bag of worms. And that heart is not pushing any blood. Without pushing any blood, what happens? Within about 20 seconds, you go unconscious. Just like in MMA, when somebody puts that chokehold on that guy, within 20 seconds, he's squeezing off his carotids, you start feeling warm and fuzzy, everything goes black. Next thing you know, you're waking up going, what happened? Your heart will last about 15 minutes or so without being perfused. You can get it back, you can make it recover and stuff, but you might have some damage going on. The other stuff says, we can give those meds and stuff, reopen up those coronary arteries, help us reperfuse that heart, help us circulate that blood. For every minute that person is down without any kind of intervention, their chances of survival drop 10%. How long does it take to recognize that emergency happens? Well, even if it's within a minute, hey, someone collapsed over here. I've had people go, oh, they're having a seizure. No, they're not having a seizure. This is an arrest. Start doing CPR. So you first got to be able to recognize it. This is what I tell the Boy Scouts when I go and do talks for the Red Man stuff. You got to be able to recognize the emergency. You got to be able to take charge and go, hey, Kate, can you go get the AED? Start doing CPR. Being able to help keep that body, pushing that blood around, the air going in and out is what's going to save it. Your brain cells start dying off within about 3 minutes. Within 3 minutes, you start losing brain cells, and they don't come back. So people who are down and they're not circulating, they don't get perfusion to the brain or to their heart. They lose that stuff. They don't get it back. Now, other things like your fingers and then outside muscles, stuff like that. I can put my finger off. You can probably go out there and lay in the yard for a couple hours. I can take it to the hospital. They can probably sew it back on and be all right. But those vital organs, your heart, your kidneys, your brain, they don't work like that. It only takes a few minutes for that brain to start losing cells and die. That's why hypoglycemia is such a big deal. Your brain uses a ton of the sugar that you consume for its function, and if it doesn't have that sugar on board, the cells don't have anything to metabolize and they die off. So it's important that when you show up, we're able to get that glucose back on board and make sure that brain has something to feed off of. Make sure that oxygen's going in there, making sure that blood's going around. Can we have the next slide, please? I got a little tangent there. So now what we are doing here is we have a medic driver and a patient care on Medic 38, and we are responding with an officer in a pickup truck. Every time I put my fire gear on that pickup truck and I can respond to an EMS call, I think, what am I going to do if fire comes in? What is my gear going to do? I'm going to show up there, maybe do a 360, and then what am I going to do? I need to be, I can direct some people coming in, but if there's somebody hanging outside the window or something, I don't have a ladder. I don't have a hose to put water on the fire to make any kind of a reset of that fire or anything along that line. So here I am in a pickup truck. The fire comes in, I have to go back to the station, probably grab a fire truck. Hopefully the other fire truck's coming from the other way, and they don't have to go all the way from Station 39 out to, say, East Boundary in Indiana or somewhere along that line, or maybe out there by Woodland Schools. That's a long ways. Problems that I found that since we started running this way, we have the other car coming from Station 39, Code 2. It still leaves Station 39 at 3. If we get a simultaneous call, that call comes in, they leave the station and respond to that car. All of a sudden we get another call. Now the other station is short on personnel also. They're at 3. They're facing the same thing that we are. All of these critical things that have time-sensitive care marks on them are delayed. The other thing that I found, which is kind of surprised me and it doesn't, is we're more likely to cancel a car. We don't need to ride back to the station anymore because we got the pickup truck on scene. But hey, he's my buddy, Josh is my buddy. They're coming from the other station. We've been running hard all day. I don't think this is going to be much of a problem. Hey, car 41, you can cancel. Now we get in and we find out what we thought that patient, what that assessment was. It's just changed, and also we need that other person on there. It's ego and it's being nice because hey, I got three capable guys right here. We could probably get a lot done. And if I cancel, I'm being a nice guy because maybe somebody's been in the department longer than me. I don't want to make them mad, or I don't want them to feel like, hey, you brought me all the way over here, and all for nothing. You guys could handle this on your own. And okay, we can have some stuff on our own. But it's the unexpected times that we run into. Like the arrest that I just showed up at was a difficult to breathe and get there and go, CPR is in progress. So 2 guys going on off of the medic and bring the rest of the equipment in, and we do what we can until we get the other person to get there. And the thing I want to say about that arrest is even if we would have been able to save that guy, with only having 3 people there, I would not have been able to get him out of his bed and onto our cot and transport him into the hospital. Because he was a big guy. When we would have to move him on a backboard or something along that line, I cannot do it with 3 people. I mean, we probably could, but could we do it safely? I got to make a move over here. People do not go down like on TV in the middle of the room or whatever. People go down to their bathroom. They may go down up here. This building is all ADA compliant. We have nice wide doors. We have nice wide hallways. We can move around here, all right? But so before they came out with these, we used bath blankets, and somebody got a great idea. I wish I would have been one because I could have made $1 million off this. All this is a big sheet with handles on it. Now, most of our average patients, they're not small. The average guy, whatever, if we had to, I'm going to speak on Deputy Chief here, but if we had to put him on this and then move him out of this building up to an ambulance with the three of us, we would struggle to get him out the door, we'd struggle to get him down the stairs, we'd struggle to get him on a cot. 4 people makes it way easier. We're not looking at injuries and stuff. We're not overreaching, we're not overstretching. We need people, 1 person on each corner in order to move them safely. And if it's a backboard, that's what we used to use all the time, using the backboard, you definitely gotta need 4 people. If I'm working on an arrest, that person is gonna be on the backboard because that's what we need to have up underneath them in order to compress their sternum against their spine in order to make their heart squeeze back and forth and to push that blood. Anybody want to try this? Anybody want to try to move somebody with 3 people in here and see how difficult it is? I have to give you the opportunity to do the hands-on stuff because I know I've been up here talking for a little while and I know that everybody kind of glazes over and then I lose people after a while. So I find just like when I'm teaching, if I do a hands-on little approach here, it gets everybody's attention again and people pay attention to what I'm talking about.
Let's carry Deputy Chief out the door.
You people are wonderful. Now, you don't have to take my word for it. I'll give you the NIST studies. Click again, please. Things that need to happen when we show up on a fire. We do both, fire and EMS.
You just say you have hard copies for all this.
I have hard copies.
And I emailed you this.
When I'm done here tonight, if you would like them, I will give you all the studies I have. I will give you my PowerPoint. I will give you my copy of my speech that I'm doing right now. I will give you whatever information that you require in order to look at this objective. Things that need to happen when we show up at a fire. How fast is fire grow? If I was to set this on fire right now and then throw it up underneath these chairs up here, how fast would it grow?
You can develop over the 2.5 minutes.
Yeah. Wow, I'm impressed. So, like in the wintertime, when we put those videos out there, I'm such an advocate of not using a live tree because they will go up like super quick if they get too dry. But even if we're just looking at modern furnishings and we're talking about modern furnishing, everything in here is synthetic based. The fibers in this chair, this podium, the desk that you guys are sitting behind, the chairs outside, is synthetic based. It's all made with oil. It burns very hot, burns very fast, produces a lot of smoke. And that's why fires are not like what you see on TV. When we go into a fire, the last fire that I was on, and we had a good one yesterday, I was not on it, but I was at the station. The fire that we had yesterday, the last fire I was on, 4 people on the engine. We get there, my officer gets out, he does a 360 of the structure. Our engineer is hooking up our water supply. I grab the tools, and the officer comes around the edge of the building and says, the fire's in the back. And he's on the one side of the building, and I have a little picket fence here. So I have to get the hose and my tools and stuff around that picket fence. I tear the picket fence down, and we pull the hose back around to the back of the building. The windows are all dark. We have smoke coming out the cracks. It was not locked. I did not have to force that door. But if I did, it would have taken me longer. After I got that door open, John Cannon, the guy that was with me, pulled the hose inside. It was a little back porch for the kitchen. He went in, he put some water on the fire. Everything was black in there. Everything was smoke. You could not see anything in there. As soon as the fire was knocked down, we started doing a primary search. That means that we went around blind in the smoke, feeling around to make sure that there was no victims in there that was need to be pulled out of that fire. I went upstairs, I searched the bedrooms, and I tell you, it's not like what you see on television. When you go into people's houses, they actually live in them. I don't know if any of you guys have had teenage daughters or not, but mine's terrible, about leaving her clothes all over the place. And when you go into people's homes and you're searching for that person who may be laying on that bed or by that window or on that floor somewhere, you're going over top of lots of laundry, lots of stuff that people leave all over, I've been absolutely shocked about how many hoarders we have here in Perrysburg on EMS calls. We flag those addresses when we find them. But people live in their homes and they're not spotless, they're not wide open, it's not like what you see on television. It was so dark in there and it's so smoky in there. And we did not have ventilation going yet. Ventilation is another thing that we do when we fight fire. What that does is it helps, we open up one side and we open up the other side and we push that heat and that smoke out. Why? Because it makes it easier for us to see, it pushes out the heat, makes it easier for we're working. And if we do have somebody that's in there that's a survivable victim, and we have not been to them yet, it greatly improves that atmosphere in there. It's an immediate death, life hazard atmosphere. It immediately improves that atmosphere to give them a better chance of survivability. So we start ventilating it out, and I'm up there around the landing and stuff, and I did not notice it before, but there's a dog up there. The dog didn't make it. Why didn't the dog make it? Because there was a dollhouse up there that was blocking that dog from getting downstairs. So somebody had moved the dollhouse or a little playhouse or something up there, the dog could knock it down, the smoke heat all rises, the dog suffocated. Sad. I have not made a life save on a person yet in my career. One of the other guys that I work with, Pat, has made that. I have saved lots of dogs and lots of cats. So something I can be, somewhat proud of. I'm a dog person, but I'm still make that save on that person. So those fire scenes that need that stuff done in time critical, a timeline. So we get all that stuff, and then what if I have somebody that needs to be rescued right away? Do I fight the fire? Or do I rescue them? I have to make that decision. If I have somebody hanging out the window and I have fire showing in the front of the house, I'm probably going to make that rescue first. We're going to throw a ladder up there and get that person out. We have to mitigate the emergencies. We have to make the rescues if they're there. And there's other things, ventilation, exposures. Sure that other companies can come up and do that after they respond from the other station, if they're available, if they have enough people on scene, and maybe they're at an EMS call when this fire comes in or something, then we're stuck. We're waiting for township to come from Lime City Road or wherever. So time critical tasks. Can you quick, please? Fires burn hot, they burn fast now. 30 years ago, you had about 17 minutes to escape the house. Today, it's about 3 or 4 minutes. Like Kate said, this entire room could be engulfed in a few minutes. I had a video on here, but I didn't want to try to give you guys time to watch a video where they show modern furnishings and how fast that room flashes over. It does take about 2.5 minutes. If you guys want to see that stuff, I'll send it to you in a packet afterwards. But I don't want to keep you here all night, but I want to make sure I get my point across and make sure that you guys understand the profoundness of what I'm saying here. EMS is not like what you see on TV either. Time is the enemy. Click that page, please. This is our fireground stuff. This is in this study. This is sponsored by the National Institute of Science and Technology, Department of Commerce, International Association of Fire Chiefs, IFF, the Pyrotechnic Institute. It's a legitimate study. And this does good studies. And this does good studies. But it repeatedly says things like, overall, the results of the study shows that the number of fire service crew members, each company responding to a fire in a 2,000 square foot, 2-story structure. That's not a big house. My house is 2,000 square feet. It's not big. Not compared to what I see out here in Sanctuary or any of those other nice neighborhoods out there. Time affects life. By reducing the amount of time it takes to perform fireground tasks, specifically deploying a hose line, the better the outcome for the victims and the firefighters. The quicker we can change that environment and stop that emergency, the more of a chance that they have of survival, the more of a chance that we have of property mitigation. Time directly correlates the number of firefighters available. That makes sense. Can you click it, please? I just gave you the summaries here, and I will send you the reports. They say that a 4-person crew completes the same number of fireground tasks 5.1 minutes faster and nearly 25% than a 3-person crew. That is significant when you're looking at 17 minutes for a house to go up. When fire is doubling in size every 30 seconds, every minute. 25%, 5.1 minutes faster. That's a lot. Can you put it, please? Same with EMS calls. Somebody goes down in here, we have to call 911. If nobody knows how to do CPR or they don't have them, somebody's not trained, I mean, I'm a huge proponent of community CPR, everybody should know how to do it. Hands-on CPR is fine. We don't have to do mouth-to-mouth on people, but hands-on CPR saves lives. I have seen a huge difference in people who've got CPR before we show up onto the scene and what their outcome is. If we can do CPR on a person and keep them going, keep their brain perfusing, keep their heart perfusing, we got a good chance of getting them back. But like I said before, for every minute that goes by, their chance of survival drops 10%. So, let's say 30 seconds we figure out, hey, this person's having a problem. Let's call 911. How long is it going to take them to get over here? From the time that we call to the time that they get over here with bringing their equipment inside, let's say another 2 minutes at least. If we call from the cell phone, it's going to go down to Wood County Dispatch. It's going to bounce around Wood County Dispatch. You're going to dispatch back up here to our city dispatch. That's going to take longer. Clear, please. But time is against us in this kind of situations. And not every call that we go on is time critical, but we have enough of them that I think it should be looked at. This study here is for EMS, and this looks at 3 different things. It looks at patient removal and from incident scene. And this is kind of what I just talked about. If I had to remove somebody from out of this council chamber and take them out to the ambulance that's waiting out there in front of it, I'm going to have to put them on something. I'm going to have to do whatever things we need, maybe blood sugar check, maybe start an IV, maybe look at their heart and all that kind of stuff. And then we're going to have to package them up and get them onto the cot and then load them onto the ambulance. All that stuff takes time. And the thing of it is, when we're running 4, or if we're running 2 and 2, those people that are extra on the engine can bring that equipment and put it back in service and help us get that person out of the house, and it helps us get that turnaround time back to where we're not sitting on scene for so long. But please. So packaging, access, and removal is a big thing of it. I'm really surprised that we haven't had more injuries because of trying to move people with 3 people. I mean, some of the people that we pick up out of their bed. Imagine that you are living in a nice big house and all of a sudden you retire and you decide, hey, I'm going to downsize. I'm going to go live in a senior community and I'm going to move into this small apartment. How much stuff do I need to get rid of? I'm telling you that the people will hang on to as much stuff as possible, and we have to move furniture and stuff out of the way in order to get to them, in order to get them out of the package. Picking them up with 3 people puts us at risk for injury. And I'm a person who works out. I'm not one of these guys who's sitting around in a recliner. When we first got our loading systems, I was one of those people who goes, a loading system? Well, you guys need to go down to the gym. You need to get some exercise. But I tell you what, at 4 o'clock in the morning, when I'm out there and I've been running all day, and I have that loading system in order to move that cot up into the back of the ambulance, and I don't have to lift that 400-pound person, it is a blessing. We are very lucky to have stuff like that. Quick, please. They looked at trauma, they looked at patient packaging, and they looked at cardiac arrests. And the overall results were the same. First responders with a 4-person first responder crew completed all required tasks 1.7 minutes, 1 minute and 45 seconds faster than a 3-person crew and a trauma. That's doing things like backboarding, putting a seat collar on, stabilizing injuries, doing a head-to-toe assessment, needle decompression, things like that. These are all trauma things that need to be done right away if somebody might roll upon somebody who's had some major trauma going. Quick, please. Cardiac's a big one. Cardiac is intensive. We got to do a 12-lead on a person. We're going to interpret that 12-lead and decide, where should we transport them to? What kind of medications should we give them? Are they going to arrest us? Please. So I'm going to give you guys all those studies, and you have the summaries there in front of you. I will email you those studies. And I have also looked at our neighbors. How are our neighbors staffed? This information is pulled from our comparables from when we did negotiations. The Bowling Green has 2 fully manned stations with a 3-man engine and a 2-man medic. That's 5. They also use a 24-hour float position and an 8-hour slot that is used for various assignments. Probably things like, I don't know, fire inspections and things like that would be great. We're not just short on the EMS and fire side, we're short on fire side too. I'm told that we are only completing 40% of our fire inspections that we're supposed to complete in a year.
You were told that, or you know?
I was told that by the fire marshal.
Aaron?
Yes. He could use some help.
Yeah.
And we are willing to step up there and try to get that done. Perrysburg Township, 19 full-time members, staffing a minimum of 5, 6 on each shift. Savannah Township, 4 stations. They run about twice as many calls as we do, but we have to watch how they do their calls because sometimes they count them as every apparatus in the station as a call. Where we count ours as every time an alarm drops, that's counted as a call. But the minimum staffing is 16 with 4 stations.
We don't augment ours with volunteers, do we?
We do have some volunteers. I think we have 5 of them. I saw 2, 3 of them yesterday. They came up for that fire. I believe that they're training stuff on their own with Joe. I haven't seen them much in the station, but
That was just a question.
when I first came out, we had like, I don't know, probably 15.
Yeah, you had more.
Yeah.
Remember when I moved? It was.
But it's a transition. I mean, as people get busy, I mean, the standards have changed, and
Well,
it's keep up with training and such.
It's a problem across the board.
Yeah. Yeah, we're not the only one.
What are you looking for? No, okay, Perrysburg Township, staffing minimum of 5, 6 on each shift.
So that accounts for somebody being off on a vacation day or a Kelly day or something like that.
And you're saying you'd like to see 5 on each, at each station?
I'd be happy. Yeah, that'd be great if we could have 10 on a shift. That would be, I think, more than adequate. That way, it'd allow people to have time off, and you still also have people on to cover. But 4 to 5 people on a shift. 4 would be my minimum. 5 would be great. If we could do 5, that'd be great. Other places around us that are neighbors, Oregon has been hiring. I know that you probably, I don't know how much you follow the local stuff, but we hear a lot of gossip in the fire service. It's a tight-knit community. Mount Clovis had this thing going on in Springfield. So now Mount Clovis decided, hey, we are going to support our fire department. We're going to run our own. We don't want Springfield to take over it. They're going to hire 9. I was told Oregon's going to hire 4 more by August 31st. I know that Springfield has been hiring. I know that Waterville's been hiring. The demand is out there. Well, we've got good people that we could hire right now, or we could move toward that in the future. This is the city manager's thing that I talked about earlier. They say 1.5 T per 1,000. We are well under that. I have 28 members on the line, and at 28 members, that doesn't even put us at 20,000. Now, I brought you different sources because I didn't want you to think that I was cherry picking information. But all this information is out there. All you gotta do is Google this stuff, and then it shows where we're deficient. I mean, it's not hard to find. Ultimately, I'm up here today because 28 people over there across the street who respond to these emergencies in our community every day have been working on different staffing models and stuff, and we've always been told, we gotta try this out, we gotta get the data, we gotta show have the numbers show what they show. those numbers, I don't know what those numbers say. I looked at our mutual aid and all that stuff, it looks good. But I can tell you that the wear on the morale, I can tell you that having 3 people over there running the majority of calls, I don't know, about 60% of them are probably over at the station with 3 people now. It really wears on you, and especially when you get calls like, I have to go out and do CPR on somebody with 3 people and I have to wait for an engine to show up. I don't know if any of you guys have ever watched somebody die or if you have had somebody that was in your care that has slipped away from you as you try to save them with their life. I have people coming back to the station and talking to me about doing CPR while a 14-year-old utters the 12-year-old out of the room. When I first came onto this department, I responded to a 48-year-old mom who had gone out the night before, and when they went to wake her up the next morning, she wouldn't wake up. We got there. She'd been gone for a long time. But her kids were in the next room, and that is something that is always going to sit with me. When we go out and do stuff like this, it is not the patient that tugs at your heartstrings, but when you see the family's reaction and their sense of loss, I mean, I could probably start crying right now, standing up here
I
talking
was
about
gonna say,
it.
you made me cry.
Yeah.
Thinking of all those accidents and all those incidents. You mentioned I had to have going around and the gentleman's wife died in bed right next to him. And if like 2 in the morning he didn't notice until 5 a.m. where the couple going out on the motorcycle on Squad Fort Clinton.
Mm.
Then they got T-boned by a truck coming out of the park on a stop sign. Guy in the front end lived and girl died.
The things that you were saying,
PR on a guy that you know is not going to make it, but once you start, you don't stop. Yeah, you're
gonna do everything you can to try to make a difference. And like I said, you know, my career is not like that all the time.
You don't go into it for
And
it's a call.
it is. The people that are doing this job, Deputy Chief Renato, Josh, Pete, you know, these guys have gotten to this job because they gain great satisfaction, just like me, from doing something that I'm going to change somebody's life. And I know that I have, over my career, I have made an immense difference in lots of different people's lives. And it's not always doing CPR on somebody and having them come back 6 months later and going, hey, thank you, I was down out there in the yard, and you guys came out there and responded, you saved me, I would have died if you guys wouldn't have showed up. You know, sometimes it's just, hey, this person looks like my grandma, and you know, she's worried, and she needs somebody to talk to on the way in the hospital. She wants me to hold her hand.
Or it's your buddy's girlfriend who's dying of you can't even think out.
And I don't want to leave you on a somber note. But the things that we do in this type of work are serious business. People's lives are in our hands. And if we are not giving it our all like we need to, you know, that can leave them with a permanent disability or it can leave them death. I mean, I've had lots of families that I've responded to that are crying because we're out there working our family member. And it's not so bad when they're adults. Well, I guess it is so bad when they're adults. But when it's a couple of kids, man, that just tears me up. So
I have the highest regard for folks that can do this. I had performed CPR on a 15-year-old kid 20 years ago. That was anything but calm. But when the EMS showed up,
you were happy to see them.
It just gave you such a sense of relief when they took over.
Yeah.
And that has still weighed on me so much.
Over the years, anybody who has done this job is always going to have, I can tell you probably a half dozen scenes off the top of my head that I'm going to carry with me for the rest of my life. They were awful.
So, yeah. Like the 8-year-old lady who breaks her hip and you go get her and you know she's never going to come home.
Yeah.
We could trace stories.
I had a lady that I had run on probably 3 or 4 times, and her dog was friendly and happy and stuff, and And we had told her, if you start having difficulty breathing, you call us because, after it gets so bad, it makes it hard for us to get that to turn around. And I don't know what the deal was, but we had ran on her like 3 times, and the next time that we ran on her, she was gone. Nothing that we could do for her.
So, Mike, I'm gonna ask you for your contact information because I'm gonna want a little more.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Being a little older, I need a little more one-on-one. You gave us a lot of information tonight,
And I
a lot of
tried to-
acronyms that I don't quite understand. So I'm gonna need a little closer to it to understand everything that you presented tonight. But I do want to ask. You said you've been at 7 for how many years since?
Well, they changed that staffing around. So I started in 2002, and we were at a minimum of 4 people on that station. And then when those 4 people would go out and respond to an emergency in the ambulance and the fire truck, 3 people would come in from home to staff that next call. I would call that a staffing of 7.
Okay.
And today we're in 2 stations. Our call increase has grown immensely. From 1,470 to almost 3,000 calls, it's doubled. And we are still staffing at 7. I don't understand why.
Is this, and how long have you been asking for more?
Well, I've been union president for this a little over going on 4 years now. It's always been talked about, and we have hired here and there. And if you look at that history where it has green people on there, where I have a highlight green, those are people who stayed. The people who have their stuff in red are all people who have left for one reason or another. People retire and stuff, and people move on to other jobs and stuff, and all that stuff is listed here. I would be happy to sit down with you and try to explain it. There's a lot of different points to this whole staffing issue, and I really had a hard time sitting down and trying to get this information across without having you here for 4 hours. I don't want to do that. But yeah, I'll be happy to give my information. We'll sit down, we can talk about it.
Yeah.
I don't understand, maybe I listened to something on here, why the chief isn't here to tell us.
Chief has put in his resignation. He told me last Wednesday that,
To me, the job doesn't end until you're off.
He is actually not in town this week.
Okay.
Can I ask, Deputy Chief, are you in agreement with these requests, or is this, or you don't want, if you don't want to
Well,
speak?
the
that's fine.
administration is taking notes, and then we're going to respond to the same.
Okay. All right.
Mike, and I just want to say, I personally am in awe and really appreciative of what you guys do. Don't ever think that we aren't interested in you and the department.
oh, I don't.
So I just wanted you to know that, I can't speak for everybody else, but this committee fully recognizes the importance that you bring to the city and its people.
I appreciate that. I think that we have a wonderful department. I have seen our guys go above and beyond for the citizens of Perrysburg, for this community. Doing things like cleaning glass. If we had to break into somebody who was on the floor and couldn't get up on their own, doing things like cleaning the glass out of the cat litter box and replacing batteries and stuff like that.
And we don't even know half the story. And that's why you said you could go for 3 or 4 hours,
Yeah.
I'm sure. But I've taken a lot of notes and written down the things that you're recommending.
Okay.
And we're certainly going to have a conversation with the administration to see, because Mark and Jan aren't going to let this go either.
And I don't want you to think that administration hasn't been doing anything. I mean, they have hired here and there. I got you that history. We have tried different staffing models when we have opened up that second station. I just think that we've come to a point now where it's time for me to speak out and say this is not working for us.
I on a personal note, I mean, you guys probably saved the life of my son. He had significantly less injury when he had his accident. It was very traumatic. And I'm squad.
That's what we're here for, is to make a difference.
Back with his head immobilized, covered in blood. So on
So,
both sides.
So I know Mark wants to meet with you, and we will certainly be addressing these issues with the department and the administration, and I want to thank you for being here.
Okay, thank you very much.
Can
Sure.
I would like
I don't, can you click for it? I don't think I have anything else on there, but
you did,
I jumped around a little bit here and there, trying to get all my stuff in. Okay, yeah, all right.
Is there any other business for the benefit of the committee? Mark, Janine?
I can wait till the police chief's here. I have something I want to talk about. And either one of you been approached by anyone asking about the animal control officer that I know about still?
The only issue I heard was cats.
Well, I know it's, how long has it been? Has it been over a year then since?
It's been a couple years.
Couple years. So, and I remember when, first talked about it, that the chief said, well, we're going to try it this way for a while, see how it's working. How is it working?
I haven't heard any plans for construction.
The only one I've heard is a cat, feral cat.
And cats cannot be picked up by animals.
Right, exactly.
I actually think that might be a good idea for the agenda next month, so that
I can ask him to provide.
has to do a little research on that.
I think he's keeping stats of the interactions that they have with the Wayne County Dog Orders.
See, and that's my problem with this. Why are we? We are paying them whether or not we have animal laws. We are paying the county dog warden whether or not we have animal laws.
Well, are they fulfilling the duties that our animal control officer did? Is it?
Well, if you remember, our animal control officer was doing duties outside of his scope of authority. So our agreement with the Wood County Dog Warden, they're doing exactly what they're supposed to
Just dogs.
do. Dogs.
Yeah. Other things have been an issue all along.
Correct. Which then our code speaks to the fact that the ACO can only deal with dogs, not cats, not deer, not raccoons, not possums, not skunks.
Although he responded to calls like that, is what you're saying?
Yes.
Because that's what the citizens asked for. I mean,
Especially early on.
It's not necessarily what the
He hasn't done
administration
it.
did.
Right.
I think that was a long time ago.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. He hasn't done that in the last, I'd say at least the last 5 years.
Chief has, once that was known, stopped that practice.
Yeah.
But I can certainly ask.
I do think that would be good to put on the agenda next time.
I will let him,
Just
ask
kind of-
him to kind of prepare a report of, summary of findings, if you will, from the last couple of years.
yes.
Very good. Any-
My email's on the website. If you want to email me your information, I will get back to you.
You're both in the county system, you can your names in.
Oh, all right.
Or the city, sorry. You're both in the city system, so if you just type in your names, you'll find each other.
Fine. We'll definitely. Very good.
Because I'm sure they have it already.
I definitely need
I
a
know they have it already.
little expanding on what we, after I read all this and anything else that,
Those municipal reports are not enjoyable to read. There's a lot of technical stuff in here, like how fast the car grows and stuff like that in there.
I meant that, there was one question to ask you.
Sure.
What's your average response time?
Uh,
And that's not easy answers, so if you want to look it up and get back to me, that's fine.
Yes, it was part of the report that,
Yeah,
Joe had that.
It was, and I was trying to remember what it was. It wasn't,
we can pull that back out because it was broken into the different
I believe-
time groupings.
I believe we were hitting about 5 minutes around 90% of the time.
I think you're right too. I'm trying to remember, but I don't know.
The whole reason for building that second station was about response times. We were hitting 12-minute response times out there at St. Clair Commons. And that is a big reason why we need that second station. It was just too far.
Yeah, which most of ours are.
Anything else?
that's all.
This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.